Robert, welcome to Harvey County Digital, bro.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good. I'm grateful that you're here. We've got so much to unpack. We've had a relationship for, 12, 13 years?
Yeah, it's been,
it's
about
crazy
that.
how
yeah,
fast
it's been
that
a
goes.
long journey.
So I don't know if this part's going to make the end cut or not.
Okay.
But what we're going to do is I like to start off with some warm-ups just to get our brains going and get some teasers in there.
Okay.
And so, again, get people to kind of see you outside the box, but it's really for us just to get our conversation flowing.
Okay.
And I'm going to learn a few things about you. I'm sure that I don't know, even though we've known each other for a long time. And we've been in different situations through business and learned from each other and with each other. And we have a lot of mutual contacts throughout the years. And man, it's been a heck of a ride. And there's nothing better than to see your friends and people that you care about when you've seen all the different types of things they've had to go through. And they continue to fight, and you were smarter and bigger and stronger than the obstacles that are coming and that have come. And now you've got a really great brand, and I'm excited to unpack that. But you also do a lot of other things that people don't know about, and you're pretty humble about that. You serve the community in many different ways. You're a family man. You're a man of faith, and there's a lot that comes with that. So real quick, let's go with our Mad Minute. I'm going to ask you some questions and unpack that. So the first question we like to ask people is, what's your favorite color, man?
Blue.
Blue.
Yeah.
Is there any specific reason why blue?
Nope. Just like probably
blue.
because 501 Levi's were blue.
You dating yourself?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I saw your sign over here, 501 Levi's. We were talking about what are the odds of me grabbing that and putting it up at back alley. It sounds like they're pretty slim.
There's an interesting story behind that.
Yeah.
One of my best childhood friends, I traded him for that. And he got it from a guy he was helping do some yard work. He had it up in his attic. He was like a J.C. Penney floor manager back in the 60s or 70s.
Okay.
And that literally still lights up, has original
That's
everything.
Awesome, man.
It got cracked when I moved here on the backside. So I'm going to see if I can get some restoration on that side. But that side right there is practically new, and I was thinking about hanging it up.
Yeah,
so
it's cool.
We'll talk about it. You never know. Maybe it'd be cool to see it in an environment where everybody's enjoying it.
Maybe a little loaned for a while. So yeah, we'd love that.
Never know. It's just sitting there. What's your favorite sports or hobby?
I love baseball a lot, and I like to read. So baseball, I coached the boys for a good 5-6 years. I had 4 boys that went through Cal Ripken program. So I just stayed at I love the Little League World Series. Cal Ripken is kind of that for the Babe Ruth program. It's that 10 to 12-year-olds, and I'd bring the boys up at 9 and have them play. And so I just kind of sat there and ran all the boys through it. And baseball, I'm a Cubs fan, and so it's just for me, it's a balance between individual contribution to a team, and it can go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a heartbeat, and so I just think it's a perfect game.
That's awesome. Yeah. And you see it that way.
Yeah.
The Cubs fans, you guys are die hard. My aunt's a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
Different culture.
Yeah. It's so we've been Cubs fans. There's one of the boys is still a Cubs fan, which is awesome. And he has a baby now, our granddaughter, and we're working on her. And I just found out a daughter-in-law is a Cubs fan too. So that's pretty awesome. But it is different. And the mentality is different now. I mean, it used to be by mid-season or after the break, it's all about just beating the Cardinals in a series. I mean, that was it. And then individual acts of great baseball were really upheld. But the idea that we would win or move on from that, Madden came in, and it's a whole different ballgame now. I mean, it's just the expectations are so high, and it's just a winning culture. He helped change that whole thing, and so it's exciting. Yeah,
right.
It's cool to see the transformation of that. I loved it when it was the other way, but you learn how to be disappointed. People talk about that all the time. You learn how to be disappointed, and yet you still celebrate baseball. I mean, you could have a horrible season in Cubs, and in the field, it's full. Yeah. Because they're just waiting to cheer on something amazing happening in baseball. So, yeah.
So if we were gift cards and eating out, things that we get, guys, maybe we should get something for the granddaughter via Cubs. Just side note. Let's put that in there.
We're talking.
Let's help that mission.
Support that.
I'll do it for you, man, since you're giving us this time. Okay. Muscle car luxury sedan? What?
Boy, that's a tough one. My first car was a '69 Camaro,
right.
orange. Loved it. My brother-in-law Dean gave it to me in 1982, I think it was. Loved it. Ended up totaling it. Always have had the idea of getting another one, or a 2010 when they came back and started using the same body form, which they nailed it on. But now at 53, it's the criteria for buying a car is I don't want to hear anything outside, and I don't want to hear the motor, and I don't want to have to yell to listen to somebody in the back seat.
Right.
And I need a backup camera, so it's all about luxury now. I want to ride. I just want to cruise.
Right on.
Yeah.
I like
but my
that.
heart wants a muscle car again.
This one's an interesting one for you. Outside of your spot and your facility at back alley, and I'm put you on the spot here because I know you're involved with this community and especially this side of it. What is your favorite go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
Yeah, so this one seems very small, but right now it really is the cinnamon swirl waffles at Norm's.
Yes.
And it's not because of my connection, but I don't get out a lot because of our busiest times are during meal times. So it's hard for a person who's in the restaurant business to visit many.
Absolutely.
But there are so many great places in Newton, and it's just I'm loving it right now. And I wish there would be a few more that I have ideas areas that we could definitely have more eating establishments.
Yeah, I love the community that you guys are building. It's moving, and I know it's a tough environment to do it in, but it's not impossible.
It's momentum seems to pick up, and then it kind of shuts down, or things get switched up. But in the long run, it's taking those little steps over a long period of time that can really make Newton a destination place for food and entertainment.
Right on. And here's another one that I know most people know mine. That's why we have so many hours together, and you're so gracious and coffees and stuff for me. But what is a special space in Harvey County that you enjoy, and why?
Yeah, that's right now, and there's a lot of them. But I love the Riverwalk. So walking along Sand Creek is huge for me. I just think it's beautiful. I think it's one of the things the city nailed. I think it's long enough. You can go, all the way from First Street and all the way to Bethel College. I mean, really, you can go all the way up if you keep, or to Centennial.
Yeah.
And so it's huge. I think it's just a great space. I just think it's a great environment. And along the way, I think there's some really neat little areas.
Mm-hmm.
And then my backyard, I really like my backyard.
Yeah. You got one of them spaces, huh?
Yeah, we got one of those spaces.
Right on. I love. That's cool. All right. So you guys received an award here recently. I'm going to transition into kind of let's talk about back alley, because that is really, I mean, you've done many things, and I'd like to kind of recap some of that, but really to hit the nail where you're at today, back alley has become, I think, a leading brand in this community. It is a small, locally owned business that puts out amazing product, that the systems and everything were researched and put together right here. I mean, you traveled out to bring information back. You continue to do so. You refine products and systems and people and service. I mean, you're doing it all. And when I have people come to town, we take them there, and I have not had one person disappointed in the product.
That's encouraging.
It's amazing. And so I don't know how we continue to support that. I know we need to, and internal stuff, that's your thing, but what a gem that we have. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about that story and back alley and how you started that and where you're at today?
Yeah, I think back alley was, we started Norms first as a nonprofit, and it went for 4 years with all volunteer, and was doing well, just not really sustainable like that. I mean, there needed to be influx of finances to keep it going. But it ended up being a great space. The board recognized that it probably needed food, and it needed more things, and we were kind of wanting to contribute as a nonprofit, and they offered to sell it to Cheryl and I, because we were kind of at that time like, this is as far as we can get it. I'm not sure. We were going to explore other things.
Right.
And that's when we found a mobile brick oven unit and started. Cheryl and two of the kids, Jordan and Allison, started going around, and we'd had it outside of Norm's, kind of experimenting with food to do something separate. And when the board offered that to us so that we could do something inside of Norm's to go for profit, we, after praying about it, really, there was a lot to take on. We decided to do that. And so Back Alley was really designed as a food item to support the coffee bar.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have much expectations beyond that. And what ended up happening is that Back Alley just took off. I mean, it felt like it was the right product at the right time. Timing is something you can't always. In the backside, you can say you knew, but really you just hit this perfect timing of what the town needed. And we didn't have a locally owned pizzeria. Brick Oven Pizza was one of my favorite things. I'm been really blessed that I've got to do coffee, which I love, and I've got to do pizza. Nice. So then the pizza just took off, and it was a scramble for about 3 years to keep up with the growth and to really learn the business. The couches and things were part of the coffee bar kind of ended up having to be moved out, and more tables moved in. And so we ended up with this pizza space that happened to have coffee. And Norm's was a strong brand, and had goodwill in the community. And I just felt like it could still have this a space of its own. And that's when Tammy Lakey and Chris and we started talking about that. And we were glad to turn that over to them, and they open a separate space, go back to nonprofit, and kind of run it as a community connection center, and they're doing great. So Back Alley then, is by itself, and it's just what it is, which it simplified everything for me and allowed us to just kind of take over. But in the beginning, we ended up bringing in Bruce Bartell too. So he's a part of the story that we don't get to talk about much, but he was actually even in the business plan as a consultant we were bringing in. He had Bartelli's Pizzeria in Wichita for 9+ years, I think, and been in the business forever. Lives here in Newton. And Bruce, I had this product in my mind, this idea of what I wanted it to look like and taste like, but I was limited in my knowledge about pizza and about dough and the process. I mean, it really is a lot to understand about what's happening. And so Bruce came in, and just his contribution was what was in my mind was he's able to help us and coach us through getting us there. And he's become just a great friend and a support. And, I really think you can really learn anything if you understand the framework in which what you're trying to do, the bones, the structure. How does this all work and fit together, and understand the terminology?
Yeah.
I mean, if when I say, not middle loading toppings on a pizza, what am I talking about? What does that mean in the industry? If I talk about a prime number, what does that mean in the restaurant industry? If you understand terminology and the framework and are willing to kind of study, I think you can learn just about anything. For some people, it takes a shorter period of time to learn it, and some a long period of time. But I think you can. And Bruce really helped me to understand how people think. What do you think about in a restaurant? Not just overall, So the romance of owning a restaurant is fun for a while, but then there's the grind, the day to day. What do I need to think about? Labor, COGS, cost of goods sold, how much everything's, and scheduling and all these things in every area of our business. He really helped me to understand how to think and how the framework works. And so he's a huge part.
That's major. How much time
really
do you think he
him.
compounded for you by the information he was able to lend you?
Years. Yeah, absolutely years. I mean, really to the point, if without that kind of knowledge, most restaurants, before they learn it, will go out of business. I mean, you can't not understand the number side of the business and what managing people and product, how it impacts. So, people always say, well, I don't know how did that restaurant go out of business? They're always busy. They're packed. And then you go and they're closed. And you're like, what happened? A lot of things can happen, but it's, if you're not making money on every item that you're selling, and you have a little money in the bank, it could be a long debt. It could be 3 years before you realize, if you're not paying attention to margins and everything, it could be 3 years before it catches up to you if you're not paying attention, and all of a sudden there's no cash. And it's really, it's so much about cash flow. I mean, I could have sold 1,000 items online, but if nobody's paid for them, I can't pay the electric bill, and I'm close to being out of business. So, there's those types of ideas where you're looking at the day to day, but the idea is for 5 years, and the idea is looking down the road and saying, okay, this day were we profitable? Because if we're not, or sometimes we don't know, there's different ways that those food costs can be impacted that you're blind to, or you don't see. They're blind spots. And if you're not running numbers, and if you're not taking inventory, you can really get lost. And all of a sudden you're open every day and you're loving it because everybody's in there, and you're looking at your checking account and going, oh, I'm in trouble.
Well, it sounds like it's critical for you, and I think for most people in whatever industry they're in, as an entrepreneur like yourself, and that's why I really love these podcasts, because it's the level of detail that you're brushing over humbly a lot of other things that you've had to sit down and spend a week with, really unpacking it. And one thing I've learned by watching you and knowing you as a person is you are real swift to get into the important things and get down to that granular level of detail. And the thing I love about watching you is you find the people and you'll sit down with them, and you're able to find 4 or 5 people and get information, and you're able to sort through that rather quickly. Where does that come from?
It's a good question. And I just think there's a curiosity and a desire to understand how things work. I was pretty late to the game with this as far as growing up. So for me, the world was pretty much bliss for, until my mid-20s. I really didn't understand how things work necessarily. I just, it's the idea that strawberries come from the grocery store. I don't know. Is it a tree? Is it a bush? I don't know. You don't know the details of life or the systems or how things are connected until later on. And that's when I kind of matured. But then it was a fascination with that stuff, and with learning about people and learning about processes. Business in general is kind of where I've landed. I've been in ministry and route sales, and I've been in just all different kinds of things, which this is the third business we've owned. You kind of don't fit necessarily in a typical ministry setting, and so you're trying to figure out what are the things you're passionate about that by being involved you can make an impact, in the community, in the church, and with individuals. But I think it's just this desire to really, I don't know, I really do feel like if you're going to do something, and you're going to commit to it, there's just no halfway. I mean, you just are all in and delving into it. And most people can do that. It's the amount of time that you're willing to stay in it, to stay in the tension. When it gets tough, are you all out, or do you lean into it? And I think when you lean into the tension of something, those ideas where and accounting was big for me. The numbers side of the business isn't my forte. It was a lot of listening and talking to accountants and listening to people. And we have our loans through SCED, so South Central Economic Development, and through Kansas Network Kansas, and they provide somebody as well. So learning the number side is something that I don't, I really do believe you can learn anything, but I don't want to learn some things, You have to decide, I'm going to delve in. And so we, doing that in something that I'd rather just be all out of and not have to deal with, which then you surrender control of your business, really. I mean, to the numbers, it'll run itself right into the ground. It's tough to stay in it and to stay and be willing to get to a place where you say, look, I need this information to know. This is a scorecard. For me, it's not about necessarily the money. It's about when I look at the forms and the profit and loss, PL, cash flow, and it's about keeping score. Like, how are we doing? Knowing every day that you're doing well. But that learning the numbers side was the most difficult, and it really taxed beyond, this is my philosophy, but, am I willing to apply it in areas that if I don't really understand, I'm not sure if we're going to close. I don't know if it's going to be that, 3 years later we're out of business thing. So,
right.
But it's that desire to really have kind of a grasp of what's really happening every day. And for me, it gives me a peace to know that I understand how things work and am able to communicate with people, experts who I definitely want them to do what they do, but I have to understand how it works and how it integrates with my business.
And so it sounds like what happened is you dug in, knew you didn't want to do it, but you had to find the pieces that made sense to you. And for you, it was a high level, because that's another thing about a personality type like yourself and you, from what I've watched over the last 8 or 9 years, really, building businesses, which is it's a deal, is your ability to hear the right things. Because a lot of people give you a lot of information, but I've seen you grab the main pieces and bulldog forward. And you do it rather quickly. Your intelligence in that space is pretty high. You got a high IQ for the important things.
Well, that's gracious.
It's true.
It's good.
So you broke down all this complicated finance into like 3 things that you watch? Or, how do you see that from your perspective?
Yeah. The 3 things. So in a particular restaurant, you have the prime number, which is a percentage, which is your food cost and labor. There were your controllables. Although everything is your controllables. But once you lock in a lease, it's set. Like, that number's not going to change until you renegotiate down the road. But so your overhead is set. That's one of the 3. And, it was those things, we were just blessed with the right making decisions that we didn't quite understand and asking for the lease and what I wanted in a lease that really benefited us later, but not because I understood what I was doing. I feel like we had favor. And so, but then, labor and cost, food costs are your number 2 things that you can control. You can control what you buy. It was shocking to us when we started this process. We had to choose between 12 different pepperonis. There's hundreds of different thicknesses, different qualities, different tastes, different spiciness, non-spiciness. We had to, and so Cheryl, who my wife, came up and tweaked all of the recipes that we had kind of come up with Bruce, and he had helped us with for the product. And the salad recipes are all her. She's really good at the development of a product, but it was a shock. Like, you had to, there was a lot to choose from.
So 100 to 12 to which one do we want?
Yeah, and at different price points. So now we got to decide based upon the concept, what are we trying to do? And for us, it was trying to do fast casual. So it needed to be fast. It needed to be a very uncomfortable environment, and it needed to but be fresh and quality food, And so that was a big deal for us. Deming was a guy. So I'm just going to throw out a story.
Yeah,
but
please, go for it.
So Deming was a guy that we sent over, and his first name escapes me, but he has a book on manufacturing. We sent him over to Japan after the war to help them build back their economy, in particular manufacturing.
Wow.
Deming has these ideas of production, and one of the concepts that he has is if a machine is running at the, engineers and designers design a machine to run at a certain level. You can go slower, you can go fast, but it should be the same quality coming out the other end. They design it to run at the highest level and get high quality. But when we think about quality, we often think, if I'm going real fast, what do I need to get better quality? Well, we'll slow down. And his thought was, actually, you probably should, if you can't get the quality you need out of a machine running at a high level, what it was designed to do. One, you need to either get somebody to look at the machine, or you need to train your employees on how to tweak the machine and really run it so it's doing that. So it's a different idea. Can you have high quality and high speed at the same time? I learned that in a manufacturing job that I have in reading some of his books, and fast casual was that for me in the restaurant industry. Chipotle. Can I talk about names?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Chipotle changed everything. I mean, here was somebody who did fresh, limited menu, fast, and it was high quality.
Yeah.
And that, it wasn't fast food, so it wasn't fast but low quality food, and it wasn't a dine-in, sit down. It was somebody who wanted in between. Like, they filled this niche, and it was just amazing. And so every other industry, from burgers to pizza, was jumping on board. And pizza was in particularly lend itself to that model because, especially with a brick oven where it's a high temperature, we can cook fast and thoroughly cook in a high temperature. And then it's just looking at your process of putting things together. So when, you start talking about what our concept demanded, but the labor cost is higher because you need more labor to produce it faster. But if you get all of those figured out, you can produce, and they proved it. And we try and emulate that model, is that we can have a very high quality product very fast. We shoot for 10 minutes. And if we're slammed, we're not going to make it, but we're going to get it out as quick as we can.
Yeah,
and
just try to stay real close to that.
Yeah,
that
we
line.
do, especially over lunch.
Yeah.
Our lunches are as busy as our dinners because people know they can come and they can eat over lunch break and still get back to work on time. So it just fits that niche.
That's awesome. Again, you go down to those details, and it blows me away when people, I thought about opening up a pizza place. And it's so nonchalant. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And then they're going to open up a pizza place and then they're going to do A, B, and C all together. And it's like, what one of those things looks like if you truly do what you just said, which you're all in to one of those things, and you might have a chance.
Yeah.
It's that intense.
Yeah. It's a fast, there's a lot of romance in the idea of owning a restaurant and owning a lot of romance and the idea of owning a restaurant. And it just goes away quick. And the honeymoon ends early, but the components of that can still be intact. You're just not going to have those moments as much as you would like. And if you're willing to settle for those times where you do get to connect with people and you do get to interact with them and you do get to serve them and they're happy, it's worth it for me. But you also have to, I was reading one book before we opened, and he said, if you're the guy that always makes pizza for his friends when they come over and they all love your pizza and they all tell you that you need to go in the restaurant business, and you decide at that moment you're going to start a pizzeria, you're going to be out of business in 6 months. It's a business.
Yeah.
And if you can get to the place where you get beyond the food, it all starts and ends with the pizza. I mean, that's what we do. We make pizza. So you got to get that right. After that, you've got to run the business. And that was a transition that that's not always easy to do because most entrepreneurs or business owners are very good at the task that they're doing. It's when they try and take that hobby or that thing they're interested in and turning it into a business. If you're not willing to study business, it's just going to be that hobby, and it's not going to make it as a business. And when you start to do something in business, everybody kind of comes and wants to ask you questions, and they assume you really know what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't think I do for the most part, But I learned quickly in who to kind of allow to take up my time, because out of the 10 that come and want your advice on this or that business, one may take it all the way,
100%,
maybe.
100%.
Everybody
Maybe.
wants to open a business, and I used to work at Love Box Company, and Mr. Love Senior at the time was coming in. He was much older. His 2 sons and son. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
Yeah. Am I talking
No,
too much?
no, you're doing a great job. I love that we're going here, because it's a little segue for me while you get that throat cleared up. Is like, I see that all the time. And one of the tools that I've borrowed from my mentor, because he gets hit up by thousands of people.
Yeah.
And he spends his time with, I just couldn't understand. I was working hard and showing up and not trying to bother him. And I was doing everything he was asking me to do times 5, and he was still ignoring me. And but in a way that he picked up on me real quick, and he knew that I was probably competitive, maybe. And so he framed everything he did with me around that. So I got a 2nd place plaque I got to put up in here. And it was bigger than the 1st place plaque. And he gave it to me at a Christmas party in front of everybody.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's just, that's good.
He's just like that,
Yeah.
And he knew that I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
And the guy beat me by like 1 home and auto sale that month, you know, and I had like, I don't know, it was pretty crazy numbers, but the other guy, Garrett, actually was the guy who beat me. And he was young and coming in fresh and new, and he's getting recruited by all these agencies, and sharp guy, you know, and that's how that went down. It's the kind of guy he was. But what he taught me is you have a meeting, you respect people, you love people, but you got to be careful where you spend your time.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first books I give people when we go through that process. Good. And you know how many people read the first 2 chapters? Almost none.
Yeah. People just don't. And it's kind of been my gateway in. I say, well, here's some books, read those, and then let's come back and talk to me about it. Right. And then,
let you off the hook, lets them off the hook.
You don't hear much. Now it's on them. And if they want to, then great. And if they don't think that it's of value, then that's okay too. I mean, there's no offense, but Bob Love Sr., he was with a cane. He actually was sitting on a step. He had just kind of toured the warehouse, and I was going in, and I stopped and I sat. I said, well, Mr. Love, give me one. This was before I owned any businesses, but I was very interested in business. And I said, give me one advice about business, and this isn't an uncommon thing. For me, though, it was the first time I had heard it. He said ideas are cheap, implementation is everything. I mean, everyone has an idea, but to implement it is what you're looking for, outcomes. And people can have the best of intentions and be great people, but not necessarily able to create outcomes that you need either to run your business or that you need to be in business. And not all of those are outcomes. Like, it's not like you just kind of make things happen. For me, it's not like that. I mean, there's a lot of people involved. I mean, you did the logo for Back Alley Pizza. I mean, it's huge for us. And that was a contribution, and it was huge. It's like awesome. It is the perfect logo. I get comments, food shows, everywhere I go where I'm wearing that, people love it. And I'm sure it's being knocked off some places,
somebody borrowed
it's
it.
Really good. But without it, I would have done a pencil drawing of something, and there it is. And, but when people do what they're really gifted at doing, and you allow them to do it, but you understand how it fits into what your vision is. Right. It's a big deal. So watching people implement and the desire that they have to move forward, and it's really tough. Everyone talks generationally, and I think it's over talked a little, but I do think this generation has a very unique spin on things compared to where we're coming from, which is, there's a biblical story about when you go into a dining hall, sit at the back of the table, sit at the end, the farthest away from the host of the party. And if he invites you to sit next to him, the head of the table, then no one can remove you. But if you assume that you have a position there and you walk in and you sit there, and someone more important than you walks in and he asks you to go to the back of the table, now you put yourself in a very precarious situation, a very uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
And it's that humility of being willing to sit back, even if you know that you have abilities better than other people who are either over you or other businesses that you want to compete with, whatever, is sitting back and being able to wait and be patient until the time is right. Because it's always about being invited in. And then once you're invited in, and once people give you permission to share or give you permission to have outcomes, put you in a position to create outcomes, then once you do that, it's a huge difference. And when we have young kids coming in to work with us, who want to manage people like immediately, or they think they know how to do this better than we do, it's always the story I tell them. I say, look, just do it the way we're doing it, because we've done this for a long time, and you may have a better way, but wait a month, and then master the way we do it, and then come in and then contribute to make it better. But that sense of outcomes and watching people and being willing to listen to people who really have done something, the best indication of your future, your future successes or your future activities or your past. Have you done something? Have you been moving up in a business? Have you anywhere that you're at? And I think that's the key too, that it doesn't matter what job you have or what business you're in. Are you in that particular moment, in that position, are you mastering it? And are you becoming excellent at it? It doesn't matter what it is. If you are, you're going to do that exact same thing if you're in an executive office, 10 years, and you got your MBA, and you're going to do the same thing. It's about creating behaviors and hungers that you have now that apply no matter what. So it may just be, working in a pizza place where you're going through college, but if you do that well, you'll emulate that, and it'll train you for being an executive in a large corporation, is my view. I really see it like that.
I agree with you. We want everything now, and I know society and the messages and the music and access to Netflix and all the things we want, instantaneous gratifications that are surrounding us at any given turn. We totally discount the commitment that comes from putting in the time and the willpower that is embedded in you because you put in the work. Yeah. And that you know because you spent time in there.
That's a big deal. Yeah. And that's part of that motivation too, I think, to really get down to the nuts and bolts of all different kinds of disciplines or all different kinds of contributions is right. I want to know that I know that I know, not because someone told me and I have an opinion. They have an opinion, I just adopt their opinion or their belief or their understanding. And I think the people I think are the most genius are people who have been in multiple fields or understand multiple fields, and they're able to take things from those and put them together in a new area. I mean, it just brings this whole fresh new outlook, because when you're this close to anything, like when it's right there, right? You can't see it. I mean, I've been there. You can't. When you're working in the business, it's very hard to work on the business. Right. And for a season, you just have to do both. Right. But hopefully, in any business, you're able to get to a place where you're working on strategy more and training and those kind of things. And that's been kind of our direction lately. That's awesome. And so it's fun. It's a whole new thing to learn again, but it's good.
Well, you're the guy to do it. I love how you're talking about the curiosity piece, and I just don't know. I truly don't know if it's just some people just have that, or because I know several people, and I want to say like us, but I don't want to give myself that credit. But like yourself, and like I have a neighbor he's just a curious guy. No matter what you put in front of him, he wants to know. Yeah. And he will spend 2 hours in the evening unpacking it, not because he just wants to know.
Right.
It's his nature.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. Sometimes I'd like to shut it off because it really can make you where you know about everything and a master of none. At the same time, if you take the nuggets and can apply them to your current situation, no matter what. So I have masterclass, so masterclass.com, and and then documentaries, and my wife is, that's an interesting thing to watch a documentary about. I'll sit and watch an hour and a half about the craziest stuff, but it fascinates me. It just really fascinates me that people are interested in that. People have become great at that, and kind of what it looks like. Can I take anything? And I think it's a lot about learning about the people. What motivated them to do that. I mean, what was it that they needed to either prove to themselves, learn, or, and it's really fun. And where we're at in Newton is a fun spot because, the cyclists that come through. We just had a cyclist in yesterday who is on sabbatical from a ministry, and, he's taking 3 months and riding his bike. And it's like, well, what, alone. It's like, well, are you lonely? Like, what is solitude? What are you looking for? And I love unpacking that and those types of journeys and understanding people's stories and why they do what they do or what motivated them. It's fun.
Yeah. So who were you as a kid, man? What did that look like?
Yeah. So it was a real, I was the youngest of 5, and I was pretty much a daydreamer, a big time daydreamer. Played with my, Evel Knievel doll and Hot Wheels and G.I. Joes and, but I would, get out the top of the stairs, put a pillow at the bottom and try hours and hours for him to do a perfect stunt man fall, on his back. Like it was just weird stuff, I think, but it was fun. When I was much younger, they called it hyperactive back then. So I was hyper and had a lot of energy. And so you're kind of bouncing off the walls. As I got older, it became much more directed and not quite as crazy, but I do think I matured late. I mean, I was a kid, and I was glad to be a kid, and I loved playing and having fun. I had 3 older sisters and 1 older brother, and my dad was military until I was in 4th grade. So we were in Southern California. I was born in Pennsylvania and Florida, Jacksonville. The military moving around, and then we settled in Colorado and Lahana, so it looks just like Kansas. I'm still, you're still 3 hours from the mountains, but but it was a great small town to grow up in. I really enjoyed it. It's almost a sister town to Newton. Railroad, Santa Fe Railroad started it. There's actually a North Lahana, separate town, just like there is here in North Newton. It's just kind of crazy how it's almost exactly the same
So the framework,
size.
even the number of people and all that's pretty close.
Yeah, really close.
That's amazing.
It's just stunning. We're a little bit more, at that time anyway, definitely Newton was more economically viable when we moved here.
Yeah.
But it is. And so it's almost a mirror community, which makes me really comfortable here. And I love the size. I love this town is, with all of its, internal strivings and difficulties that every town has, from politics to reinventing ourselves after everything leaves downtown. I mean, we all struggle with small towns with this same thing. In the end, Newton is just a healthy place to be. I mean, it's just a fun place, and I think it can be better always. That's just how I think.
I believe that. I believe that. And I think these conversations and learning from people like yourself who are in the fight and wanting the best for the community for a lot of reasons and just to leave things better than what we found it, you know.
Absolutely.
I believe that's true. And I don't want to let this opportunity that we have in our generation pass us from doing our part. And that's really speaking to myself. I just need to do more and get better at connecting people.
Well, you know, as a side note to all this, Andy, I mean, we have had a long-term relationship, and your drive and your energy and your passion, and you're willing to take chances in areas like doing this. And you guys were so cutting edge with Newton in Touch. I mean, I still think about that. And I think that was one of those timing things. People just weren't ready.
Yes, sir.
But the touch screens to connect the community it was stunning. I still love the idea of that. And I think today it could probably work, but maybe phone and other things have taken it over. So what you were doing, though, was cutting edge, and it was inspiring to me. So it's been inspiring to me to watch you work, your encouragement, your connecting with people. You know, you've been one of the guys that have leaned in to the library issue. You know, are you still involved in the library?
Somewhat, yep.
Somewhat.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I mean, but you were on the ground floor of that, really wanting to make something happen. And that's kind of the story of the town a little bit, is that you're trying to make things improve. And it's really hard at different times. There's a lot of things involved.
It's a deal. And thank you for lending me that. I really want to show you off, because I'm a knucklehead and I get messed up all the time with stuff, but you are that guy for me, honestly. And just watching you navigate and build relationships and always take the high road, almost always. I've never really heard you not. I know we're all people.
Yeah.
Dude, we're not perfect, both of us here sitting at the table, but doggone it, man, you're in the fight and you're building a good business and you're lending to people and you're training guys like Devin here, who's with me today, who respects the heck out of you, and we take care of each other the best we can. We're a small community and we need each other. And I'm just blessed to be a small part of the things that happen. And it's not anything to do with, it's the people that I've been around that really charge me up. You know, the Carlos Fernandez, the genius creator types, the designers, the Aaron Budges, you know, the Brian Eberts, you know, the Clausen, you know, Heather Clausen, Steve Owens. And I can go on and on and on with all the people that have worked with me and around me and helped me bring visions to the forefront. I'm just amazed that I got to be a little part of some of those things, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like that too. I mean, you can't. I think back alley or some version of it would have happened. I mean, you're a steward of things. I'm going to be here and I'm going to be gone. I'm just able to take a space, and with a lot of people's help. And you're gracious to say I take the high ground all the time. It doesn't. When you're in leadership and you're trying to do things, there's casualties along the way because you're inefficiencies. I mean, you're things you don't know at the time. You don't know how to communicate them, or you don't know exactly what you want. You become insecure, and out of that, you make decisions or react to people in ways that aren't always positive, and there's fallout. And I'm at 45, I wouldn't have led the same way I did it. I would now at 53. I mean, it's the difference in raising your own kids when you're this close. Yeah. And now we have a grandbaby, Yeah. Like, my patience is unbelievable with this grandbaby. My kids, I think, are going, why do you wouldn't let us get away with that? Well, you're right. But you learn that it just didn't matter. I mean, in the long run, some of these things maybe didn't matter, but your intentions and your heart and your willingness, to take risk and to be at the forefront. And I think most people really need, and the more they understand themselves, the more they're able to be secure in who they are. Their identity, for me, it's a person whose identity is in my faith and how that relates, and you mature in that. And as you get to this place where few things shock you anymore, people to offend you have to do some pretty serious things, because intentions of heart overrule simple 30-second bad conversation
100%.
or a heated development or a season in time when you're, working on something and, voices are telling you things. I think when you get to that place of just really being comfortable in your own skin and what you've done and what you've tried to do, and knowing that even if there was fallout, you've kind of tried to make those things right. I mean, there's the point at which you do have to go back. I believe that.
Yeah, we were talking about that today. I mean, maturity wise, it's like, there comes a point when people mostly mean well, even if they don't agree with what the conversation, or I don't want to change people. I don't want to win. I want to understand you. Yeah. And, when you get to that point when you're not trying to win. I want to understand, and maybe I can say a few things to help you rethink, and you're saying things to help me rethink because I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
And when you get to that point, it just doesn't matter because there's a lot of people, honestly, a majority, I think, that are just not gonna want to open up those doors.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like when I see a problem in somebody, it's probably something on the forefront for myself. Yeah. And if I'm not able to step back and unpack that first, I'm going to have a rough go at it, especially with what we have to do.
Yeah. I think, there's been such good, Newton is a great place.
That's I mean, what
Nate Regier is doing and those guys over there, you had him on. I give everybody and recommend everybody Conflict Without Casualties. I mean, it's just a way of understanding yourself. What are you in the triangle? And then a way of understanding open, open, resourceful, and persistent. That is a way of communicating that you have to learn because your instincts don't take you that way. I mean, they don't. Somebody really needs to help you to understand. And when you can communicate in those ways, it's just healthy. I mean, there's just something about it that you take that energy that's, like they talk about, and I'm not trying to sell this book, but man, you take that energy that can be negative or positive and you're able to turn it into a positive.
I think we have it.
Changes. Yeah.
We have a few
good. And that was written, he wrote, his first book was written in norms, the majority of it. And it blew my mind. It's one of those things where you see Nate sitting over there, but it's not until it's done. And I think it's even mentioned in the foreword. And you go, wow, there's things happening all around you that, and you're impacting or facilitating someone to do something that is just amazing. It's after we have a busy night at Back Alley and we've tried to do our best and we don't always hit it, but we try and fix it when we don't. We just are trying and we're working hard, and you get home and 2 reviews come up that are positive, and you're going, wow, I don't even know who that was. Like they were out there that tonight, and I communicated with people, I checked on people, but that's just awesome. It's just a good feeling to be able to cause people to have a positive experience and able to facilitate that. So it was really encouraging with this book, and we've been a real just have loved what he's done for a long time.
Yeah.
And
Beyond Drama and Conflicts Without Casualties. And we could probably put some links into those books. We have a podcast that we've done with him, and he's just a treasure of information.
And right here in Newton.
That's it. He's one of us.
Right here, and he's doing things on a global level.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. It just encourages me and makes me think, wow, we have some really good resources here.
Why not us use. And what if, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Keep that what if out there. He's doing it.
Yeah.
Why not us? And he's a great resource. I believe that. And just for community and communication and working through those hard conversations in a healthy manner with some framework. Because a lot of us grow up shouting and screaming, and I did.
That's how you get your point across. I mean, absolutely. And to be able to step back, and then it comes with that maturity. But leading is hard. I think leading is in some ways overemphasized. Not the need for quality leaders, but that I know that everybody needs, on some level, in some area, is a leader in their life. But everyone is also a follower. And followership, being able to understand how to follow and not create conflict in that, but really support it, is an area that I think we're going to see more information come out about, because it's, the pendulum always swings, and it's not negating the leadership, the need for quality leadership. I've not always done that well at all, and hopefully I get better and better. But I'm also, I'm not. My son is my pastor right now. I mean, so I'm a follower of his vision, his heart, his passion in ministry, and his wanting to do that. It's not. It's easy to do when you surrender to the idea that I am not the best at everything. I didn't surrender to that idea early enough. I'm not the best at everything. And just because I have an overall vision of what I want this to look like doesn't mean I should pick, the color on the wall. Somebody knows colors and somebody can design this better. I know that I need that and I want that, but can I turn it over? And you guys coming in and, the digital boards. I mean, we have things as a small business in this town that we shouldn't have. We wouldn't be able to afford if they came the usual way. And to be able to take advantage of that and partner, and I feel like we've come out way ahead on that deal. But we have a customer experience that's amazing at the register because of these digital menu boards that are amazing, and that's what you bring. One of the things you've brought to the table for us, and every day I walk in, I'm just amazed at interactive screens. I'm just amazed at what is there, and I'm amazed because it's bigger than me. I'm not amazed because I made this happen, because I know what I did and what I didn't do in there. I'm amazed that I get to walk into that space. I'm amazed that I get to have become pizza anytime I want. For me, that's a win.
Sick.
That's pretty successful. I get to play around with and
every once in a while throw in a salad.
It was great. And when we had norms, I can have a latte anytime I want. These are, they're just good quality of life things, and it's just a lot of fun. But developing people that really, I love working with the young people at Back Alley, and we've had a number come through that, they come in as a high schooler or as a freshman in college, and they're timid, they're scared to be at the register, they're scared to interact with people, and but you can just see the potential, and you just, I like to tell them, you'll be running this place in 3 years. You just need to lean into it.
That's it.
And then, 2 years later, they're as confident as can be, and they're mastered that and went on to master other things in the business. And it's just amazing to watch. And we've got to see some amazing young people. Devin is one. He's been involved from ground zero, and or as close as you can get to ground zero. When we started the whole thing. And we've all grown together, and we've all inputted and made an impact and got it to where it is. And providing the direction for that is really how I picture myself. And then other people just make it better.
No, please.
I used to train everyone who came through because I had learned it, and I felt like I was the best at doing it at that time.
Yeah.
And so everyone had to do it the way that at the pace that I was comfortable with. And it would take me, before I would get somebody stretching, the dough, before I turned them loose, it would take me, Devin, well, for me, it would take me 2 months. I mean, it was really, they had to really be good. And I would train them a little bit as I go. And when I kind of stepped back from the business, what happened was the people who were cooking, and to cook, you had to be like you're 6 months in. The people who were cooking realized that, you're standing in front of a hot oven. It's not the funnest job. It's a hard job. You're presenting, you're cutting, you're watching, 6, 7 pizzas in the oven all the time. It's a high pressure job, but they realized that in order for them not to have to do that on a Friday night, that person who's stretching, has to be able to do that eventually quickly. And once I kind of stepped back and wasn't there day to day, people stepped up and took over training, and people would take me, 2 months to get stretching. They had stretching in 2 weeks on a Friday night. I was like, I think they're better at training to be, but their motivation, was, they had a different motivation. And so it was really, so right now with training, they are bringing people up incredibly quickly and well, like they're doing it well. So, at its season, there was a season that I needed to train, but eventually you got to go, I'm not the best trainer. I mean,
right on.
I want to be, but I don't. I do other things well. Yeah. It's finding where you
Connectors.
fit. And as you go to different levels of the business, all that changes. When I coached kids in baseball, there were key ages. So when you get 10 years old, the whole game, baseball changes. It's different than coach pitch or machine pitch. Now it's live pitch. And when you get to 13 years old, now it's not on a small field, it's on a large field, and the ball is faster. And the bat is different. You have to relearn the skills. How you were swinging your bat when you were 12 doesn't work at 13. And you see so many talented kids that are really talented at 12, and you're thinking they're going to be the star on the high school team, but if they're not coachable through the transitions, they won't. And they wash, or they're not willing to change the way they do it because it's been successful. And we're all afraid to give up what's worked in the past. But when you're in and I think for owning a restaurant in particular, and talking about that, when you go from, hey, my buddies love my pizza, I'm going to open a restaurant, you have to be willing to understand that at some point you're going to be looking over numbers more than you're managing people or making product, for sure.
100%.
If it gets to a place where you're, you halfway, successful. And for me, success is sustainability.
That's right.
Are we able to stay open? I would love Back Alley to be a generational, I grew up taking my kids, so when we moved away, when we come back to visit grandma, we're going to come in, and this is where I used to come or used to work even.
That's awesome.
And so if we can become that, I'll be really, really happy about it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for all the energy you're putting into that. And you have taste on many levels, and it shows through the product, through the customer service, through the environment. It's a unique space, and it takes a lot to build what you have put together. And you're very humble about it, but you provide the avenues, and you work with people in a way where the value you give back is way more than the value that's come to you. And I know you're going to be humble about that, but because you're lending, and I appreciate that. And I know there's other people that I know that you've worked with that I'm pretty sure most people, not everybody, you're never going to have that, but most people would say the same thing. And we got a treasure because of the energy that you and your family have sacrificed and put in. And I remember some of the moments that weren't so easy, and to see you navigate that and to drive by there. And I don't go there as much as I want to, because I'm a coffee nut. I'm at Norm's all the time. It's just kind of my thing, right? It's just where I go when I want to get out and go see people. But I try to stop in when I can, and it's gotten better. It's consistent, and it continues to get cleaner as far as like the look and feel. It's purposeful. Everything's placed right. And then when I go in there and I think it can't get any cooler, there's always a new little twist that makes it that much better. But you're not yanking the feel of the ambiance. It's just little smart tweaks that make it cool. And so thank you for doing that. Robert, today, what are you curious about right now?
Probably too much, too many things, but I think I'm really curious about, I continue to try and understand the dynamics I've learned in the 3 business, the entrepreneurship. It's such a almost overused term. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
For sure.
But it is a way of thinking, I think, and how that applies, and what kind of I would love to start something else. I mean, I would love to at some point do, whether it's, open another location, or whether it's open a totally different business in Newton. Or somewhere else. I have this real desire. I guess you're kind of wired that way, where it's very, your goal is to get the business to a place where it can help support maybe starting something else. It doesn't have to, but with an entrepreneurial mindset, it's really hard to shut things off. Like, you can't not evaluate things. It's constant, and it's not always healthy, and your family can get really tired of you doing it. But it was interesting having daughter-in-laws come into our family, because they're there now, at the most, intimate times and meals and times when it's just us as a family. And to hear their kind of perception of how we communicate, it's a lot about ideas, and some of them have caught the entrepreneurial bug, but all of them can contribute to an idea. Like, we start going off on, somebody should do this. This would be cool. And so I'm really interested right now in kind of figuring out what might be on the horizon. But at the same time, protecting back alley. I mean, that's my passion. It's just in the back of your mind. What am I interested in? I'm interested in another. I guess I'm interested in bringing some form of the entertainment idea, whether in connection with back alley or not, to Newton, because I really would like Newton, and there's a lot of positive things happening as far as festivals and the food truck things, and people worry all the time about the food trucks coming in, and sometimes they're right on our street, back alley, and it's
literally.
It's what do you think about?
Highway, yeah.
But inevitably, every food truck day, our business is better than average. And I think it's just people want to get out. They just want to become a part of something, but maybe they don't want to mess with, they want to go somewhere familiar, but they want to be part of the energy and the excitement. And that has happened from day one in the very first food truck show. So we're always supportive of those things. The car show is awesome. We sponsor that, and that's our best day of the year for back alley. I know it affects different businesses, different downtown. Mm-hmm. For us, it's very positive, and we really love it. But to have something that's always there, to have something that is an entertainment aspect downtown, that you can come, you can eat, you can walk, you can shop, you can antique, you can go to the different areas, and do something fun, whether it can be something really simple. There's some ideas in my head, but some of them are silly ideas, and some of them are really are cool. And we may just experiment in that area. But when you start to mention places, it's dangerous because you're afraid to leave something out. But Prairie Harvest, Aaron, what he's doing with the packaging and the branding of product in the back, and how. Really, the juice bar, I think, is one of the most underrated places, not talked about much in his facility. It's a cool juice bar, man. I mean, it's a great vibe in there, and you can watch manufacturing happening when they're doing it. You can have lunch, and get juice, and in an incredibly healthy way. To me, those types of places are just kind of the building blocks to all of us moving towards this time when I think all the cylinders are going to hit, and Newton is going to become a really cool place to come to. I think it is now. I think the Fox, what the Gathering did with the Fox and the renovations, and as they continue, as we have more community events in there, which I know is their goal and what they're shooting for, that can't be understated. I mean, it'll get there. And when it gets there, I think it's just going to be awesome.
Well, look where it's at. Remember walking through that thing?
Yes,
and then now, this is huge. And it's really, I know most people don't want to hear this, but a person that says 3 years from here to here, from that young person coming in, 3 years from where we're at, from what that place was when we walked in there, from that one meeting to now,
Yeah.
it's like that's a whole new world.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get better.
Yeah. I remember conversations when we walked through that space during that critical time.
Yeah.
I mean, the conversation really was, are we going to have, I don't want to have a downtown park in between the two buildings. Like, I mean, it was bad.
It was
and
right there. Yeah.
run down. And so I think where it's come is really good. And every small town is dealing with the thing. I mean, there's a whole show created on it, right? About Main Street Main Street America, I think it is, where it's they come in, there's a designer, and then there's one of the sharks is on there, and they give a grant for the downtown, but they also come in and kind of help small businesses down. We're all trying to figure out a downtown. What's positive for me is that I really do think your downtown is the heart of your community, and it's the one place that still has character. New spaces typically are built for efficiency and for cost. I mean, back then, the buildings were built for look and appeal, and design is different and the downtown buildings are just unique. I mean, they're just awesome, and the feeling in there, and to have the people involved, and of course. Those that have invested, like in Prayer Harvest in that building, the guys that initially did that, Dwayne Pauls and those guys that have had buildings and they've been stewards of these things. I mean, that's huge. And to be now with Regier coming in and doing some of the renovations with Norms and with the building right next to the Fox there, for Cookson and Moreau. It's just neat. So it's happening not at a pace I would like,
right?
But I think it's happening with a solid foundation, and every little business and everything that we're doing downtown is going to create a moment where it all comes together.
I believe that, and let's be clear: those investments that are being made on paper don't make sense. There's a lot of capital going into those things from people who are truly
absolutely
giving. Because when you get on paper in the world that we live in, we have to look at that. And there's a lot of risk involved with that kind of spend when you know what the values are in those areas. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, it's true though.
Hey man, real quick, this is kind of a real big one. And if you can unpack it as quick as you can, because I know you got to go and we've got things to do too. But before you get out of here, I really wanted to take this nugget from you. If you're willing, if you're not, that's fine. But is there something that you could give our listeners, and this may be a little segment that we clip out for them, because this is real key, because people see you and you have it all. And I know they don't understand the day-to-day, and I get it. I don't know. I have an idea. But it's you have to fight for what you have. But there also are things that you've earned the ability to have your brand and have your person and your reputation and everything that you are today by hard work and all the things you've gone through. And usually the people like yourself, there's been things that have happened, and there's usually an incident that they can go to that say, hey man, I went through this. This is what I was going through at the time. This is what I've learned from it. I wish I would have known now what I didn't, if I could go back, I would do it differently.
Yes.
And this is my takeaway. Can you give us something that's happened to you where you failed and you've learned, and you'd love to share that with people? A nugget.
I don't like sharing those things with people, but
yeah,
people. I'll share kind of one that helps clean up the perception that everything with Back Alley has just been, gold
rock
and
star.
just been
right.
solid. The concept of Back Alley was. I mean, we started with just soda pop bottles. I mean, the concept as it is in our business plan is not what we're operating in now. Like, to me, it didn't work. So I was willing to make adjustments, but what we were doing wasn't working. And that's why you make adjustments. That's a failure, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't really think of failure as much as in those types of areas is regret. It's more of trying to make the adjustments to accommodate what people are really asking for, what your vision is. You want to bring, really you just want a man cave pizza place, right? I mean, you want what you want, and ultimately, though, it's not what everybody else wants. And I had an individual tell me, because we did soda bottles and everyone's drinking. We didn't think really we would be a family type establishment. I mean, we hoped, but it just wasn't in our mind. The concept of the target market wasn't like a family of 5. I mean, it's individual customizable pizzas. It's not buy one pizza and be able to feed the whole family. And plus we had, sprinkly stuff on top, and in the brick oven, the crust gets dark spots. And my kids were picky, eaters. And so was I. So they're not going to eat this, but they did. And, parents aren't that comfortable with their kid having a pop bottle, and drinking it, and there's a concrete floor in your restaurant. So, but I struggled giving that up. And I was sharing with someone about it and just said, I just really struggled, because that was the idea. It's that feeling of it's the 70s where you got this Coke and you got this pizza, and it's just this nostalgia idea. And they said, Robert, you know how many people really care about that Coke and that experience? And I was like, I don't know. He said, well, one. What people really want is the ability for their kids to have a drink that they're comfortable and there's no stress. And so you're holding on to it. And so we made those changes. We still have bottles, but we brought in the freestyle machine because pop machines in general haven't changed their design since the 80s, and they're ugly. And so freestyle is a pretty machine, and I really enjoyed it. But you said answer quickly, and that's just not happening.
No, that's all right. No,
but the one regret I have, when we started Norms, it was really an extension of a church plant ministry. And it was the outreach arm to connect with the community. Norms took off and did well. The church plant didn't. And so I've helped start other churches, and I've got trained on how to plant a church after that. But I was really clear. I started thinking about a coffee shop ministry mid-90s. Didn't even really know about Starbucks. It was this idea of a space, so where people could talk about theological issues in a safe space. Because in churches, you're so held to a theological position sometimes. Very emotional, very personal. It's hard to have a non-emotional talk about theology apart from academia. And so it was that idea. I understood it. I really had been pondering it for years and years. I didn't understand church planting, starting a church in relationship to that. So once we started trying to do both, and I was taking classes at the time to meet the needs requirement for ordination with the organization we were with, and I had my first business, Quality Hood and Duck Cleaning, so I was working nights. We're trying to fit all this together. The church plant was the failure, the casualty.
Yeah.
And there were casualties of relationship, and there were casualties of expectations. I really do believe all frustration is unmet expectations. And unfortunately, we're not able to communicate our expectations well, or we don't really understand our own expectations until after. But the expectations that I had, I wasn't able to communicate well, I don't think, with people. My insecurities just weren't really, were such that it just didn't work. And so we ended up shutting down the church planting side, the church side, and just going with Norms as an independent nonprofit. That was tough, because it's that when I became a Christian, the church planting was kind of that avenue that I think you probably put. Church planting was that avenue that I think you put entrepreneurial-minded people who have a heart for ministry in, because it makes sense.
Yeah.
but I didn't understand it, and I didn't have good coaching. But the reality is, I just don't think I was a very good leader in that area during that time. I was too busy. I was trying to do too much. I wasn't focused. And I think there were just the regret part is the relational part where people, our expectations aren't met and where you hurt, not intentionally, but you do. And being able to kind of work through that over the years and try and figure it out has been a difficult road. But when you do fail, you do learn. And I have been able to help others or facilitate in church planting because I know what not to do. I mean, really, there's a lot of value in that. So I'm not a coach or I'm not a person that can contribute to that from the side of, oh, this is what I did and this is how you should do it. It's more of, dude, you're overvaluing this. Let it go. Value this, because in the end, this is going to be what matters. And I think that is the lesson that I took away the most, was that idea of, there was a Tony Campola. There's a guy who would go around, a pastor who would go around and speak at colleges and stuff back in the day. And he had this, he would talk about him and his friend broke into Woolworth one day. And back then they didn't have scanners. They didn't have the UPC codes. It was just price tags on stuff. And all they did was move the price tags around. So a pair of shoes were 50 cents and a whistle was, $5. So they just moved the price tags around. And the moral of the story was, we really do put things that aren't of real value. We put too heavy of a price tag on them. And it's only if you understand the true value of something in terms of history and in the future that, and I think that's what comes with wisdom as you get old. If you're granted with it, you can look back and go, you know what, young man, this right here isn't going to matter. Don't get worked up. Stay steady. Focus on these things.
Yeah. And
I'm going to do one more because I have to.
Please do it.
Really, Elmer Reimer used to come in. Do you remember Elmer?
Absolutely. Try to see him once a week if I could.
Yeah. Elmer would come into Norms. Actually, I preached at Grace one Sunday, and he came in the next Monday and just wanted to connect with me. And just, he was there forever. I mean, I don't remember what age he was when I said, you're going to get coffee here free for the rest of your life. He ended up living for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was great. Every day he'd come in. And when he came in, he just settled everything down. Like, he's one of those guys, he had life presence, which I believe, is from his faith. And you just wanted his approval or you just wanted his input. And he would share with me. And he, over the years, so many stories, but he would talk about his relationship with God and his relationship with people. I mean, that really, what it all boiled down to, his whole life, here's a guy in his 90s. That's what he deemed important after going, his story is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I think we're missing that. I think we're missing people who are seasoned in life being able to communicate the price tags, what's really important, and then young people being humble enough to believe them, and maybe not make all the mistakes, but minimize the mistakes by choosing occasionally the long-term understanding of what's important in our lives. And Elmer was a huge impact on me. We lost Elmer, and I miss him every day. And I think about him every day because he was one of those mentors that was quiet and a man of few words, but he really listened to what he was going to say. He had the experience, but he also has the wisdom and as a pastor for years, and bivocational all those years. He was bivocational, built homes while he ministered. I mean, this is a guy that worked hard and really put in the time, and it just made a big impact on me. So I try and think in my own life, the things that really matter for me, and my relationship with God and my relationship with other people. So much of other things can get in the way. But if you protect those things, even when you don't agree, if you can protect those things, even when things aren't going well, then I think there is this peace and this contentment that can come that helps you. Unfortunately, generally it comes after 50 or so.
Yeah.
At least it has for me. So, but this is, thanks, Andy.
Yeah, it was really cool that you brought that up and brought him up. And I had scriptures many times when we'd have our talks up on my mirror at the time. He'd tell me about sitting in the chair and getting that routine down every morning. And I really took a lot from him. And so it's really cool to see how he was reaching out there and influencing the community the way he did it.
Yeah.
And man, what a beautiful soul. And we miss him.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing his story a little bit here. And Robert, thank you for everything you do. The churches, the not being afraid to fail, even though it hurts, being the guy that's going to step out and try to get it done, and having good intentions as you do it, even though some people might not believe that. It's not very many. Sometimes we want to listen to the 3 bad comments on Amazon when there's 2,000 great ones.
Yeah.
And it's our nature, especially guys that are in the space that you're in, which you're challenging yourself all the time and pushing and growing, and you're building some great things. And there's so much good energy in the community, and you're a big part of that. And thank you for lending to me over the years as well, and still today here. So we appreciate you guys. If y'all want the best pizza in Kansas, go to Back Alley, enjoy that experience. There's a lot that's gone into that over the years, and it continues to get better. Thank you to our sponsors, Remax here in Newton and Midtown Venues. It's another space downtown. And so we appreciate those guys for sponsoring our episode today. And most of all, thank you for what you do in your family, the sacrifices you've made, and continuing to push the Back Alley vision forward. It's so fun to see that brand growing. I hope to be there today for lunch, actually.
Awesome.
So, man,
Great.
appreciate you,
Thanks,
Robert.
Andy. Yeah,
Episode 16, Back Alley Pizza with Robert Palmer. We're out.